and thank you for joining me on another episode of the Zero Five Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Abernathy. And in today's episode, I want to talk about one of the most underrated skill sets in the safety ministry or emergency response in general. This skill set is extremely vital in the success of any emergency response evolution, any type of situation, and yet it very, very rarely gets trained. It very rarely even gets talked about. And yet this particular skill can make or break how the entirety of the situation goes. I'm talking about emergency communications, specifically radio communications. Look back on your team's training history. Have you guys ever actually sat down and discussed how to talk on the radio? As a 13-year firefighter and being prior military before that, I have seen firsthand the difference that clear, concise, thorough communications can have on an emergency scene and the detrimental effect that incomplete, unclear, long-winded radio communications can have on a situation. We had a situation a while back at my church that emergency communications almost led to somebody getting severely injured. I trained my team in how to troubleshoot a stalled elevator. We have an elevator on our campus. Our senior adults, their classrooms are on the third floor. Not my idea, but it is what it is. And so because we have an elevator, our senior adults are on the third floor, and we've had issues with our elevator before, I've trained my team how to do some basic troubleshooting to fix the elevator before we need to call 911. We had a situation where our elevator stalled in between services, and we had people stuck in the elevator. We had senior adults that were trying to come down. And so my team took their basic troubleshooting steps. One of those is to go the floor above the elevator, if possible, open up the breezeway doors and take a look. And so I had a team that was going up and doing that. I had another team that was trying to reset the elevator using the fire key. And in the midst of all this was a lot of panicky, unclear communication on the radio. A lot of people talking on the radio and saying, I'm doing this or somebody do that, but no true communication loops. So the fire department eventually gets called, and the fire department, we had shut down the power to the elevator like you're supposed to do. And the fire department did some troubleshooting and they said, hey, we're going to turn on the elevator. Meanwhile, I've got two people on the third floor, elevator stuck on the second floor, two people on the third floor with their head in the hoistway, taking a look at things, trying to see if there's a reset button on top of the elevator, which sometimes there is. And the fire department turned on the elevator and started to make it move. And nobody had communicated that, or it had been communicated over the radio, but nobody returned the communication. The communication loop was not closed. And so the elevator starts moving while I have two people halfway into the hoistway, and it could have potentially been very bad. Fortunately, they got out of the hoistway real quick and the crisis was averted. But that's just an example of how failed radio communications can have a very detrimental effect on your safety ministry's ability to respond and handle an emergency. Communication is extremely vital in any situation because if your team is spread out over your campus and something happens on campus, they need to know, your whole team needs to understand what is going on. Even if it's not in their area of responsibility, they need to understand what is going on so they know whether they need to backfill a spot or whether they need to heighten their level of awareness based off of what may be happening on the other side. At the same time, we need to be able to convey clearly to the congregation whether or not they need to be taking steps. And this is done through radio communication and other means of communication. So let's step back and I want to talk about principles of communication. In typical communication, it's a loop. Okay, so The sender formulates what they need to communicate, and they send it to the receiver. The receiver acknowledges that they receive the message, and then they acknowledge that they're acting on the message. The original sender then acknowledges the fact that they know that their message has been received and is being acted upon. That is a closed loop of communication. So typically in a phone call, it is me calling my wife and saying, "Hey, honey, how's it going? Hey, can you do this for me?" My wife answering the phone saying, "Hey, honey, everything's good. Sure, yes, I can do that." Me saying, "Okay, great. Thank you very much. I love you. Have a nice day." That is a closed loop of communication. It's the same thing if you're talking to somebody face to face. Those specific face to face or phone communications, we do it through email also, but that closed loop communication is very, very simple because you know specifically, I am talking to you. You know that I am talking to you. You are acknowledging receipt of my message, and you are confirming to me or communicating to me receipt of that message. It's very, very easy. On radios, though, it's a different story. Okay. One, on radios, there are no interpersonal or physical cues, nonverbal cues that you hear that I'm talking, or you know that I'm talking to you, or that you know what I'm talking about, or have heard what I'm talking about. Radio is a everybody is on the same line. Everybody is listening to the same traffic. So if you have 10 people on the same radio channel and somebody says, "Go do this," well, 9 people are going to wonder, is that for me? Should I go do this? And potentially you have 9 people going to do that task. Or they may think, I don't think they're talking to me. And you have 9 people doing that and nobody goes to do the task. That's the problem with radio communication. And so understanding and learning basic radio discipline and radio techniques, communication techniques is very, very important. So if this isn't something that your team has trained, you need to start training it. And so understanding closed loop communication, understanding proper radio calls, it's not super difficult to learn the principles of it. It is very, very difficult to instill habits of talking and communicating in that manner. So for instance, what I teach my team is I teach them the "Hey you, it's me" method. What that is if I'm going to send something over the radio, let's say I'm in the rover position and I have somebody in the parking lot that I need to communicate. I'm going to say, "Hey, parking lot, this is Rover." I am going to wait for the parking lot to acknowledge that they know they are being talked to. So they will say, "Rover from parking lot, go ahead." That now tells me that I have a direct line of communication between me and the parking lot. They're listening. They know they're being talked to. I know that they know. And I'm going to give them direction. "Hey, parking lot from Rover, can you go check the north end of the parking lot for me?" The parking lot then says, "Rover from parking lot received. I'm going to go check the north end of the parking lot." I then say, "Parking lot from Rover, thanks, appreciate it." And that is a closed loop of communication that is very clearly stating that I, Rover, am talking to the parking lot. Parking lot is listening to Rover. I've given direction to parking lot. Parking lot received that direction, understood it, and is executing what I've asked them to do. And I've confirmed that I know that they have heard, received, understood, and are executing that. So that is one method that gets taught. Some emergency response agencies will do something slightly different. They'll say, Rover to parking lot. There's all kinds of pluses and minuses of each. I operate in my agency. We operate under "Hey you, it's me." We've done that in the military. So that's what I teach my team. Also understanding the importance of clear and concise communication. And so practicing talking on the radio is very important because go online. We've all heard the the different types of radio communicators. You have the person that swallows the marker, sounds like that. You have the other person that tries to be the ultra cool FM radio guy, and they're talking like this. It's very quiet, and they're trying to be an air pilot. And you can't hear anything they're saying because they're just trying to sound really cool on the radio, or they're trying for nobody else to hear what they're saying or the fact they're talking on the radio. You have some people that talk super duper fast on the radio and we can't understand what they're saying. Teenagers, right? Like I have teenagers that talk super fast. I can never understand what they're saying on the phone. You also have those people that they get on the radio and they want to give you a 5-page dissertation on the fact that a door is open, right? And so they tie up the radio line during that whole dissertation of the door's open. But they're talking about the door's open at an approximately 75-degree angle, and I don't understand how it could have opened. The lock appears to be previously engaged. Meanwhile, something's happening that somebody has emergency communication and they're not able to get through because the line is being tied up. So when you talk on the radio, clear, concise, thorough communication. And so when I teach my team, I teach them the LCAN method. That's location, condition, actions, needs. I am here. This is what's going on. This is what I'm doing about it. This is what I need. You do that in the most concise manner possible. And when you talk on the radio, talk slowly, talk clearly, over enunciate. That way everybody can hear what you're talking about. Now, here's where this gets interesting. Learning how to do this is one thing. Making it habitual is another thing. But being able to habitually do it in an emergency situation when you're all jacked up on Mountain Dew and excited and you're trying to get all this information across and you're not thinking clearly, being able to do that is a whole different level of skill set. And this is why this particular skill set needs to be trained and it needs to be reinforced so much, because when it hits the fan, one of the principles that we operate in the fire department is the fire goes as the first 5 minutes go, right? So if a clear, concise plan is communicated to all the responding units in that first 5 minutes, and we know exactly who's doing what and how it's being done and what is happening, if we get that in the first 5 minutes, it's gonna be smooth sailing. But if somebody gets all jacked up on Mountain Dew on the radio and they can't think clearly, they can't communicate clearly, and so we're all just figuring out as we go how to do this, it usually ends up being a Charlie Foxtrot. And if you're not prior military, Google Charlie Foxtrot, all right, if you don't know what that means. But that's what ends up happening. And so it's very, very important to train your team and to practice these radio communications. So what I always recommend to folks is always, always, always incorporate radio traffic into your training. Whether it's medical CPR training, active shooter training, firearms training, emergency response, any type of training you do, incorporate some level of radio communications. So for instance, if we're doing CPR training with my team, I will initiate the call like a radio call. So medical responder from operational command, and we will do the radio call that way. And we will send them, and then they will request additional assets. They will request 911. They will do all the things. And that's just practicing CPR. That's our standard CPR class. We do the same thing with scenario training, where it will be a full dispatch and the communication is going to happen. And every time we train, every time we have an incident, we always take time afterwards and we do a hot wash. So a hot wash is a no-nonsense breakdown of what happened. It is talking about the things that went right and the things that went poorly and how to fix the things that went poorly, because that is how we get better as a team. If you're not hot washing every single encounter or event, that your team has, that's a practice you need to start ASAP. But we break it down and we say, okay, did everybody understand when the radio call came out? Did everybody understand what was going on? Were they able to get a clear mental picture of the situation, what was going on, and what still needed to be done? If the answer from anybody on the team is no, I didn't quite get it, then we're going to break down the radio communications and say, okay, what went wrong? What was missing in this communication? And if they say, yeah, I knew exactly what was happening, I knew what needed to be done, awesome. We'll move on to the next part of that operation. But radio communication is an integral part that gets trained in every single training evolution that we do. Furthermore, to build just the habit of the closed loop communication, we utilize the closed loop communication every time people come on shift, every time they check out a radio. They do what's called a comms check or a radio check. And it is operational command from Rover. Go ahead, Rover, this is operational command. Operational command from Rover, radio check. Rover from OC, I have you loud and clear. How do you have me? OC from Rover, I have you the same. Thank you very much. We practice that closed loop, clear communication every time we check out a radio. That way, it is so ingrained that when I am pushing that push to talk button, whether it's on the radio or my caller mic, that I am going to talk in a very specific manner. We build that habit so that way when the stress levels go up, I don't have to think about, wait a second, do I say it's them? Hey, you, it's me. It's hey, me, it's you. You don't have to think about it. It's habitual. So as a safety ministry, I hope so much that you're doing regular training. And I hope you're training all the skill sets, de-escalation, medical, your emergency response procedures, of course, active shooter and active attack, how to handle the different types of situations you may have. I hope that you are training that, because if you're not training, you are setting yourself up for failure. We should all know that by now. But also, I hope that you are training the most fundamental, basic skill set that can make or break your operations, and that's emergency radio communications. So if you're not, please incorporate it. If you are, awesome. Keep it up. It's always a skill set that you can polish up. But that is the skill set that nobody talks about. So that's why I'm here talking about it today. So thanks for joining me on the 05 podcast. I appreciate all of your support. If you like our content, please share the podcast. Go visit me on Substack. It's the word 0, the number 5, safetytraining.substack.com. You can support this ministry either through a paid subscription or a subscription-free donation. Your paid subscription or donation helps me do this. I'm working 3 jobs and I've got 3 kids. And so taking time to do this ministry that God has called me to do, getting some support really, really helps. So thank you to all my followers. Thank you to all my subscribers, and stay tuned. We'll have more Substacks and podcasts coming in the future, but always remember, protect his people, give him the glory.